conversation. It's the conversation. Y'all ready? Y'all ready? Let's go. Let's go. No filter, no restrictions. You about to get my opinion in its purest form. So my words, don't try to spin them. What I said is what I said. And what I said, I meant it. The gloves are off now when I'm coming out swinging. So engage in verbal combat, but you better be ready. Cause this here for me is light work, even if the topic's heavy. I'm ready for it all with no running from nothing. You just take the time to digest what I put in, no rushing. But time is moving, don't waste it. You want the real, come and face it. Come sit and talk to me if you want it straight without a chaser. And it might burn a little when you step on up to taste it. But it's nothing harsh, I promise. Just a little conversation.
Well. Welcome back to the conversation and two of my favorite people on the planet, which is Harold and Dave. How are y'all doing?
It's all good, baby. Hot, but it's all
I
good.
am enjoying life.
You guys smiled when we had all of our topics. Now that we've been heavily jumping into the election, you guys don't come on with the smile anymore.
Reporting on the shit show is never.
I feel you. Well, let me tell you how it started. I put the promo out that we'd be talking about VP candidates of Donald Trump, and someone angrily messaged me, "You guys are so one-sided. So you're not going to do a show about Joe Biden's VP candidates?" And I'm just like, "What am I supposed to do with that?"
Oh, yeah. Well,
Kamala Harris. Okay, we're done.
But it's the anger of people to not know what they're actually saying to me.
Who, by the way, is a lot of reports on her uh, that she's in polling. She's performing better in a head-to-head matchup with Trump than Biden,
Mm.
and so she's like yes, there's actually almost something to talk about there because she appears to be, they're seriously looking at we'll go with her if Biden steps down from the race, and so. But anyway, there we are. We've talked about her, so we're no longer one-sided.
Okay.
Yeah,
Although
but
it's a
initially,
one-sided situation.
but
There's one guy who's a president and incumbent, and so the other, and in fact, that plays Trump's advantage
Mhm.
because he gets to generate this interest, and we're doing a freaking show about what this idiot's going to do. But yeah.
Well, before we get into it, I'd like to ask: did we watch as much as we could watch of the debate?
I'm sorry.
I
Or did you
watched.
do like me and watch the highlights? Because I watched for about the first 30 minutes and I was about to commit ritual suicide, so I decided to watch the highlights instead.
I
Well, I mean, I
went
did.
and
Good.
Go
go
ahead,
ahead,
Dave.
Errol.
Go ahead, Earl.
I did see again a few highlights here and there, but again, the consistency was, about some of the what was described babbling of
Hmm.
Biden and then the lies of Trump. So it's like the which do you prefer?
Is that
Or
how
and
you?
but
Yeah.
what I think is disingenuous is the fact that two things. One, why is there this cry now for Biden to step down out of one debate performance? One poor debate performance. Meanwhile, if you go back 2012, Obama's first debate performance was horrendous. And people were surprised and shocked. Nobody said, oh, he needs to step down. No. Well, let's see how things progress. Continue to rally around him because, again, at the end of the day, is it about the person or is it about the policies that we're looking to try to, push forward as far as an agenda is concerned? The second
Well,
piece is I'm still trying to understand this whole notion of the cry about cognitive decline over criminality. I have an issue with that. But anyway, I'll land my plane and Dave, chime.
we stopped watching because we were just Lori and I just were like, okay, that's enough of that. And I actually went ahead like 10 o'clock because the debate's still going on, right? For another half hour. And I totally opposite view of Harold. I said that my view. I stated then that I thought that Biden should step down. That his performance was, and it's not just one performance; it's the type of performance. He was incapable of bringing energy. He was incapable of responding coherently to questions. And he was playing into all the concerns about cognitive decline in age. And the difference between, I mean, this wasn't a bad debate performance. We've seen him debate, we've seen him do things. This was evidence of a process that we know is going on under the surface. And I just looked at it. I said, look, you've just played into every concern that people have, that everything the Republicans have said. You were not able to bring the energy. And we're making a 4-year bet on an 80-year-old guy. That's very different than Obama. If Obama comes out and doesn't perform well, it tells us something, but we see another one. When Biden comes out and does so poorly in terms of just cognitive and his energy, it's not one debate performance. It's a sign that times have gone. And I remember Oliver Wendell Holmes. He fell asleep once while listening to an argument at the Supreme Court and gave his resignation the next day because he said, if this happened today, I'm getting older, it's going to happen again. And so with Biden, you look at him and you say, look, you're just not there for this. And thank God the debate is in June, right? Because we've never had a debate in June before the conventions. So it's something to actually be a possibility. So I am actually a big proponent of replacing Biden at this point. And I don't know whether that will happen. It seems to be gaining credibility and momentum. And I am now at, it's at least a 50-50 at this point.
So
So
let's make
I have
it
a
clear
very
out there
different
because
point of view there, Harold.
let's
Sorry.
no, it's fine. It's a conversation.
Oh
But
my God, we're actually
I don't think you
disagreeing.
guys I don't think you guys would disagree. Well, and I want to clear it up because some people will hear what you said and take it a whole nother way. You're not saying, hey, Joe Biden's not capable, let's go Trump. That's not what you're saying.
No.
No, but that's how people, how people are, and that's how people will read it. They'll take what you said, especially if we do it at a clip, and they will say, see, this is why Trump should win. That's not what we're saying at all. Maybe it is Kamala Harris that
Yeah,
needs to be the candidate
but
instead. I'm talking more on, like, when I talk bad points about Joe Biden, it's not to make Trump look better. I'm just strictly talking about Joe Biden. And I'm more on the line of what Dave is saying is when you're looking at that and you're like, well, when you're looking at a president that you're electing for 4 years, and again, Trump, we're going to spend time on that. We know what that means for 4 years. I'm not saying that side is better, but when you look at him now and say, what's that going to look like in 2 years and 3 years, because of how we see the presidency advances people's age throughout their tenure. We've all seen the pictures of how presidents look when they're elected and then how they look 4 years later, right?
or 8 years later.
Yeah, or 8 years later. But definitely 4 years later, we've seen the difference. So I get the concerns of Dave. And I also get what Harold is saying is for all the people poo-pooing about this stuff with Biden, they're also the ones who are poo-pooing are neglecting the bigger issues with Trump. So there it
But
is.
also, when we go back and look at what happened with Ronald Reagan and the Iran-Contra scandal, and you see that afterwards, once he got called out and he had to go before Congress, everything was, I don't recall. But at no point did anyone, or maybe I missed it, was there this strong push to remove him from office? Or
I don't think there
2030?
was because we all knew it was BS. There's a difference.
No, but then they
It
kept
was,
saying that he may have had dementia.
yeah. And again, I think they were playing on that on purpose. Not saying he didn't, but
Well,
it,
say they were lying. Just say what they did. Say what happened. Stop trying to beat around the bush. They were lying, trying to cover up what transpired.
yeah,
He played into it because he was an actor, and
yeah.
he played the role well. I don't know if he studied dementia patients at that time, but he played the role well.
You guys could smell what The Rock was cooking when that happened. Um, it
The
didn't
Rock
seem
were cooking.
authentic. It didn't seem authentic, is what I'm trying to say. It did not seem like something that was authentic, right? To me,
No,
as
I,
revisionist
I
history.
agree.
Remember, I was a kid when it happened, so I'm talking about what I saw, as watching things as they happened in the past. You two were, well cognitive at that time. What do you think about what he just said, Dave?
I don't think to be honest, I wasn't really focused on that at that time, and so
Hippie.
I do not necessarily have strong memories of that. That was a very apolitical time in my life, so because I was in the military and
Well,
very political.
also, Harold, just to let you know, Dave's not going to really comment too much on this subject because, he was friends with Ollie North. All right, so
Oh my
let's.
goodness. Oh my goodness.
I'm just kidding. Dave was not friends with Ollie North. All right,
He didn't
so
get paid. I mean, at least he should have. He should have got paid. Come on.
that's how he has property in Maine and in North Carolina. Got it. Got some of that Iran money, huh,
White
Dave?
privilege, damn it,
You got some of that Iran money, huh,
generational
David?
wealth.
Generational wealth. Okay, so when we first scheduled this episode, there were a lot more names on the list for presidential candidates, and I'm going to start deleting the pictures off the screen as as they've been taken off the short list. Now, Harold made an observation that I didn't even pay attention to when the new list came out. So the list from before had Doug Bergman, Mark Rubio, J.D. Vance, Tim Scott, Elise Stefanik, Ben
Stefanik.
Carson, Stefanik, Ben Carson, Byron Donalds, Nikki Haley, Tom Cotton, and Tulsi Gabbard. Uh, the next list, all the black people are gone. Uh,
All people of color, including
I'm not
Tulsi.
surprised because how are you going to get all the MAGA people to sign off on your VP when they look like me?
And the notion that, if Trump happens
Wait,
to fall over,
Hold on, Harold, because I just made Dave put his hand to his
I'm
forehead.
just like, you know,
can't win.
why would you do it? Why not? It costs nothing to say they're still on the list, but
Mhm.
you now have just given us something more to chuck. And yeah, just keep going, keep
Does it
doing it.
cost nothing? I mean, were they eliminated from the list because you feel like, they would never say it. There's a certain portion of people that would vote for Trump that may not because of those select individuals being VP candidates.
Do you think?
I'm just saying, I'm not, I'm just trying to check, You two are my subject
Well, I
matter
mean,
experts.
you also have to look at the fact that, not just looking at it from a racial perspective, but also, or people of color perspective, but looking at it from the perspective, okay, when I look at Byron Donalds, his only area of influence is Tampa, Florida, or the West Coast. Not really outside of Florida is he very influential and or will contribute to helping gain additional votes. You may gain 1 or 2 percentage points in black votes, if that's a thing. I don't even know if that's a thing anymore because we got black jobs floating around, but black voters support. But I don't see them being able to, especially those that are out of Florida. I think Scott was at one point being considered. Marco Rubio, what can he add to Trump? And then there's also the discussion of, can you have 2 persons from the same state,
Wait, hold on. So
on the same ticket?
don't make this hard for me because when you call their name, they're coming on down into the screen. So we want to stick it. You threw a couple names
Oh,
in there.
I'm sorry.
So Byron Donalds, you were just talking about why this would not be a good idea. Dave, what's your take on Byron Donalds? Because we're going to get rid of the people who are off the list already first.
I have no idea
Byron
who he is. Never heard of him.
Never
I have
heard
no
of him.
reason to know who he is. Never heard of him.
Well, maybe that's why he's not on the list anymore.
I mean, seriously, A lot of congressmen. It's not,
All
and
right, so let's get him out of here. Byron Donalds
But
I
that's my
is
just
point.
expected Byron to
He's
seem like a nice guy.
Yeah, but I mean that's my point. He's in Florida. He's only localized to just Florida. No one outside of Florida really knows who he is. So how can he gain additional traction outside of trying to appeal to black voters?
so that could be the reason for his elimination and not based on what he looks like.
Yeah, I would say that was probably the better reason why not.
And you can make an argument that if you picked him, it would be a transparently token gesture,
Hmm.
and and this is not the group of folks to do that, right? And they
Mhm.
don't like that kind of thing. I mean, going beyond all the chuckling we're doing, part of their thing is we aren't going to do this kind of thing for the sake of diversity.
Doing
And
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
then there's this guy.
This guy. I thought he was gone forever, but apparently I was wrong when the first list came out.
Uh-oh.
Um, I've never seen a person go from such a respected place. Well, I have, but he went from such, when I knew the name of Ben Carson or first was introduced to it, such a well known, respected doctor. He's not seen in that light anymore. I think the worst thing he did for his legacy and his name was run for president.
I agree.
I don't even know why he was on the list.
That's but again, remember what has been transpiring the last few weeks and months. This targeted effort to what? Appeal to black voters. So the more people I have on my short list, not my shorter list, but my short list, it is an appeal or an attempt to appeal to black voters more so than anything else, if you ask me.
Well,
Because you put someone with a medical background over HUD. I'm still trying to make that make sense. So there was
if you're
never really
trying
go
to
ahead.
appeal to black voters, why don't you pick black people that black people like?
Because them
Those
black
people
people
like
might not like him.
What'd you say, Dave?
because the people who are actually popular and prominent, how many of them are pro-Trump and stay popular?
That's exactly what I said. He just said it
I mean,
better.
and Kanye, I mean,
Yeah.
you'd have to pick somebody who had something that was more than personality, right? Like to the extent that Kanye West retains his popularity, it's because people like his music, right?
Mhm.
And you could be like, yeah, he's a nut job, but then so are a lot of other musicians, and I just like his music, so back off,
Name
right?
a
If you
music who just name a musical genius who wasn't a nut job.
Right, that would be my thing.
Oh
If
wow.
we didn't like their politics, we would get rid of a lot of people, and I'm still going to listen to Cat Stevens songs and enjoy them.
Well, I mean,
You
you
know,
don't have to listen to Cat Stevens. You can listen to Jim Croce instead.
I know, but I'm just saying that I like the song, and I'm just saying that you
Or
would
Jimmy
have the only
Buffett.
person who would like Trump and stay popular is somebody who had some core talent, right,
Wait a
or
minute. Wait a minute,
thing.
Dave. Something important
What?
just happened. Did you say Cat Stevens and I said Jim Croce and Harold joined the conversation by throwing in Jimmy Buffett?
Yeah, we gotta have it. Gotta
They
have it.
just went. That's a whole. That's not even in the same. I was
Listen.
playing on the whole folk
My
music.
wife didn't hear you, thank God.
I was playing on the whole folk music genre, and you just
Well,
curveball
we're wasting away
it.
over here in Margaritaville. So hey,
I,
Oh,
I believe we are getting off topic.
he's from
yes, I do
Miami.
believe
You got to forgive him for throwing in Jimmy Buffett. He is from Miami. I didn't have his picture on here, and I
I
didn't
didn't
notice.
think it
But
was
Tim
that
Scott.
bad.
Tim Scott was the third of the three-headed black monster that were
Woo.
candidates for
Jesus, keep us near the cross.
Tim
I really
Scott.
don't like that term. Let's never say what you just said again.
Which term? What term?
No, I'm
The
not. I'm not
monster.
saying it. The three. No, we're never saying that again. I don't care what context
I
it
guess only the host has privileges.
is.
Yes,
Well,
I, I,
I'm certainly I'm not going to be the one to say it. Yeah,
Tim Scott, Harold.
Lost a lot of respect for Mr. Scott a long, long, long time ago, and see to play games and placate the people. Um, Many of the things that he said were just totally disrespectful,
Mhm.
dishonest, deceiving. The fact that even when he was charged with trying to come up with the gun law bill after the George Floyd incident. No, it wasn't after George Floyd. I think it was after the Charleston church incident. He and Graham were supposed to meet with Jeffries and I think a few other representatives to come up with a gun bill to try to address this issue. And then they walked away from the table. And then a whole lot of lies were told as relates to why things didn't get done when there was really no intent to get anything done because we know that that's their agenda. So, and just hearing some of the things that he said as it relates to saying that contradicted himself, where he said America's not racist, but then you talk about 6 times that you were profiled at the Capitol
He lives in
and
South
you're a senator.
Carolina. What's he talking
I'm sorry,
about? He lives in South Carolina. What's he talking about?
but again, those were his words, not mine. So it just seems to me that people are willing to say and do whatever's necessary to either stay in their position or gain additional power, and that's what's scary to me when I see individuals like that. And I'm glad he's not on the list, in all honesty,
A lot of
or
people
should I
on
say,
this
no longer
list,
on the list.
a lot of people on this list, I don't even know how they. Maybe because I take things more personal, and if I was in that political spectrum, I'd look at it differently. But when Trump comes out and say things like he makes a better surrogate than he does a candidate, and then you want to run with this guy, like I couldn't do it. But maybe because I'm not built for uh, what they're doing.
Yeah,
Um, Dave, we're right above South Carolina. Are you familiar with Tim Scott?
yes, Tim Scott I've heard of.
Mhm.
Yes, and again, the problem is um, there there is increasingly a lack of policy substance. Harold early on said, "Are we going to talk about policy or personality?" And and to a certain extent, those were the good old days when conservatives had conservative principles. Get me Paul Ryan back, right? That was back in the day where I was nonpartisan because I could choose somebody, right? I would have been happy to vote for Paul Ryan for a lot of things and to stick with him. And Nikki Haley has had some bad moments, but she was the kind of person that back in the day I would be making a choice. Who am I going to vote for? But we are seeing increasingly the emphasis on this symbolic stuff, on these culture things, and the outrage, the manufactured outrage and all this stuff that is dominating. We're seeing there is no policy. The Republican Party um, did not have a platform. They chose when Trump ran last time to not have a platform. I imagine they're going to do that again. So it's not partisan.
Mhm.
Say they don't have a policy when they won't even say this is what republicanism is beyond we're nominating Trump. So now you're going to have Il Duce in charge, and that's all you need to know about the party that we have their dear leader. So all of these people um, on the Republican side who used to be able to come out and express a policy perspective have gone away. So Tim Scott at one point, I think, was in that category. He had some policy points of view, um, and you could say, "Well, I'm a black conservative," and then that where there would be policy issues and unique takes on issues that he could have. But now it's, do you support Trump or not? And do you think the election was stolen or not? And these are the hot buttons. So yeah, that's my, all right. I'm landing my plane. But that is my big problem with all of this is, and that's why I appear to be like a Democrat because I've got nothing to
To
balance
work
here.
with. You got nothing to work with. Like, give you something to work with. Because you will discuss them both objectively. You're going to point out, like, we had a whole episode about it when we had people on here and we were saying, name something good and bad you don't like about what particular party or another. And we had people that could only say good things about one party and they couldn't find anything wrong with it, which is impossible. You do have the ability to discuss the positives and negatives of both sides. So, but that's when they give you stuff to work with, right?
Well, I mean, I have no trouble finding bad things to say about Democrats. Trust me. You know, oh no. It's like I say, is give me something that the Republican Party is that isn't Donald Trump,
Mhm.
right? These guys will go out and they'll say, "Tell me why you support Joe Biden without mentioning Donald Trump." And you know, at a certain level, I'm like, well, that's like saying, tell me how the Kansas City Chiefs won without mentioning the 49ers performance, right? You know, I mean, there's that aspect to it. But the thing is that I can't evaluate. The Republican Party gives me nothing but what Donald Trump is. And Donald Trump, other than being disgustingly conservative on social issues, and but we don't know what they are. They don't have a position other than to say they want to get rid of Roe v. Wade, and then they want to go back to a 19th century anti-abortion law. I mean, they don't have a positive statement, so it's a bottomless pit of social conservatism. And on that, I am socially liberal. I believe in freedom, and I believe in those things. And so that, you know, they don't have a fiscal policy, they don't have a foreign policy, they don't have domestic policy on any other issues other than this anti-progressive handmaid's tale agenda. You know,
My airport's full, so no more landing of planes, okay?
all right.
All right. So I was going to put him closer to Dave, but I'm just going to continue to put them in the middle. Um, one of Harold's favorite people. Let's get into it, Harold. I was like, I got to get this one next while you have the energy to talk about it.
I don't even
Um,
know if I have the energy to talk about Mr. Rubio. How many times, like
I can't get my
with
finger in his ear.
as, as Dave
Oh,
pointed out,
there you go.
how can you disrespect from someone consistently
mhm.
and then say they're gonna be one of your VP candidates? I mean, and he's done it to almost all of these individuals that are on his short list, with I think the exception of one, maybe two. I mean, one on the short list that I may not be aware of, but you know, he's disrespected Rubio on several
Little
occasions.
Marco.
Yeah, little Marco
Exactly.
and
You know,
Rubio insults his manhood, talks about his small
you
hands.
know,
I'm like, what is happening? Uh, it just
I can't see me being disrespected by you, and then you want me to stand alongside you. That won't happen. It can't
Well,
happen.
one of the bigger problems is if he did run with Trump, he has to change his residency. Am I correct in that? I need to research that. I believe that is so because they're both Florida residents, correct?
Well, I know that residency issue came up. That's what I mentioned earlier, but I'm not sure what the actual law is, and I'd have to go back and
Yeah.
review it. But I did hear some talk of it, and you know, but again, outside of Florida, what influence does Marco Rubio have on a nationwide scale? You know, can he bring in additional votes here, there, or anywhere? Um, and even within the Hispanic community, you know, Cubans have mistreated many other Hispanic groups themselves. You know, so that's not going to garner any additional support for him. You know, which is again would be a concern. And I just don't feel that Trump is going to pick him. I think he's there to appease the people of Florida, but he's not going to pick it. You know, and it'll
I
be
got it
this way.
right here. But then there's the Rubio, Florida problem. The Constitution says two candidates from the same state cannot run as president and vice president, meaning Rubio would need to change his residency because you know Trump ain't doing it. Rubio would need to change his residency, something he is reportedly willing to do, but does he really want the job?
You see, here's the problem. Once you agree to run, well, I don't know. Would he get his seat back if they lose, Dave, or does he have to give up his
Well,
seat?
if he gives up residency, he can't be the guy from Florida,
Right.
Well,
or
I
he
mean,
can't run
but
for re-election as it. I think I don't know that you have to technically maintain your residence after you're elected. Maybe you do. I don't know, because it's all about getting elected, and then staying elected. The rules are more like a
Yeah,
matter
because
of
we've seen people
Congress.
move to
What
places to get
so,
elected and they don't live in
and
that place once they are. Yeah.
right. So, but
so
to
he
get
would have to claim
reelected
homestead then.
in Florida, it just it's just insane. I mean, to do that, and um, yeah, yeah.
We could solve all these problems if Trump would just have Herschel Walker be his vice president. Okay.
Oh Lord. Now Herschel's a little perturbed. He's a little pissed right now, so I don't think you want to go to Herschel.
um, Speaking of now, here, look, I was going to save this one for last because speaking about being a running mate of someone who constantly belittles you and makes fun of you, this guy takes Harold. You already know who I'm going to bring up. I can see by your.
Yeah, I love Michigan.
I don't know how this man on the screen stomachs and would want to run. Donald Trump embarrasses him every second he can in his own state.
I'm
I'm
speechless.
going to start with you because Harold started with. Oh, Dave, I'm going to start with you. Your thoughts on JD Vance being the nominated vice
Yeah.
president to
I thought
run?
he was Ohio.
He's Ohio? Okay, I get
Yeah,
those two
somebody
mixed
said
up.
Michigan and had me going. I'm like, that's JD Vance.
Yeah, that is JD
It's
Vance.
Ohio.
And
I
Yeah,
stand
it's
corrected.
Ohio.
he, it's sad. I mean, at some level, Trump is going to turn on you the second you do anything you don't like. Trump has no concept of loyalty to other people. He only has a demand, an unbreakable, uncompromising demand for or you groveling support from people. And so they have to give him that. They have to grovel. They have to, tell him this stuff, and and he doesn't give it back. So JD is the guy. He might be the best pick because he seems to be willing to do that. And these other guys like Rubio, I just don't understand why anyone would want to be VP, because being VP means having this constant stream of pro-Trump stuff coming out of your mouth, knowing that he's said this stuff about you in the past, and he's going to say it the minute you stop spewing pro-Trump words out of your mouth, right? The first second you do anything where you think you have an issue, right? Recuse yourself as Attorney General from and you're scum. Don't go along with the steal this election scheme. We want to hang you. And JD Vance, in that respect, might be the best qualified VP candidate because he does keep coming back, and somehow or other he's okay. And so I don't know what his proclivities are. He seems to like this kind of thing.
Yeah,
Um,
he was around 2016. He was one of Trump's biggest critics. I mean, he was one of the ones calling him a fraud, saying it's a moral disaster, all of those things. But his mind has changed based on the amazing job that he saw President Trump do in office. He went from
no,
calling Trump the American Hitler, which is just a vile thing to call anybody. I'm not even going to go that far and compare Donald Trump to Hitler. But he went from that to he's pretty much people call him Donald Trump's son,
Yeah, baby
basically.
Trump, huh? Well, I mean, I find it interesting that he says that presidents must have immunity, but just not Biden. Maybe it's me. I don't know,
well,
but
this is the guy for the job, right? This is the guy. This is the guy for that job in terms of the audience of one that he's going to have to satisfy. We saw it time and time again. That phrase got used that when someone was out there, they're like they're playing for an audience of one for Trump because they're not evaluated on they're evaluated on what Trump thinks of them, not whether or not they've gone out and performed. There's no independence, and so this is the guy that
No, I
does that.
agree. I agree 100%.
Yep.
100%. It's just amazing to me that, the hypocrisy of many of these individuals. And they don't
Oh yeah.
realize that same immunity that they want to give one person, really creating that king or that person who's above the law. And I guess that's another show for another time. But
Yep.
the dangers that we are now potentially going to experience are unfathomable if this individual, along with whom he's trying to run next to, get in the White House. It's going to be an interesting scenario to play
You're
out with our
amazed.
democracy.
You're amazed at the hypocrisy, but you're not surprised.
No,
Okay. That's when I
no,
would
no.
start to
I
get
think,
worried about you. If you said the word surprised, you were
yeah.
surprised or disappointed. Okay. Let's play the name game. Who's on screen?
Oh Lord.
Well, well, are we supposed to go with her name, or are we going to drag up her birth name? I mean, because like a lot of people do, right? That would be to me like using Barack Obama's middle name. Um, wow, that was an unfortunate. That was an unfortunate choice back in the day, and it's Nikki Haley. Let's give her a letter.
Oh God.
She almost did it. She almost did it. She almost was the last Republican standing.
Mm.
She went
Oh,
and
Dave, you need to write that book. Oh, we need to copyright that, and you need to
the
write that
last
book, The Last
and
Republican Standing.
and then she bought into what is became the new Republican, which is again, I'm sorry, it's almost I don't know how it isn't an objective fact. I don't know how two people could look at the Republican Party and get different answers to the idea that everybody has to signal abeyance. They have to swear fealty to Donald Trump, and she was not. She was the one that wasn't. And there are people like Hogan. There's still a few out there. She's the last national one, and so now she's done it. So um, I hope he picks her. She would be my choice if I could pick. I'd be like, yes, let's put her in there because you are an old guy and I'm pretty sure you're in poor health. And if you did get elected, she would have, from my point of view, of all of these, she would be the person I would most want to, of all of these, to be inherit the presidency. Um, but yeah, I can't see him going for it. I don't know why he would do it.
You don't know why he would do it?
Why he would pick her.
Well, wouldn't he pick her because of all the things you just said?
Does he think that way? I mean, I like, and is she going to be able to? If I was him, I would be very suspect of her that she is the kind of person who, by demonstrating her independence, demonstrated that when I need her to do something I want, she won't do it. Like if I was him, which I'm not, and I don't know if he thinks this clearly about things, I would, given how much he values uh, unquestioning obedience, this is not your choice. She is holding her nose and saying nice things about you. And unless you find that in itself fun and worth having her on your ticket, I look at it and I go, "Yeah." But who knows what metrics he's using? I mean, that's the
All
thing.
right.
We just, no.
Daryl, what do you got to say about Nikki Haley?
Nikki, I think she needs to make up her mind. She flip flops. Yeah, again, one minute America's not racist, but then in another speech you talk about how your family was mistreated, and it's well known that even her father When he came here to try to um, take care of his family and seek for employment, he had to go to an HBCU in South Carolina to gain employment. So racism doesn't exist, but yet and still your family was directly impacted. And now because you are in pursuit of a position or power, you want to deny the realities that currently existed around you during the time of your growth, your development, and how your family was even treated. So I just think it's hard for me to align myself with anyone who would just willfully lie just because they can. And I'm going to quickly touch on, I think Dave's book. I thought maybe you correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe Liz Cheney would have been the last Republican standing. I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying. She stood up against the new system. She stood up against MAGA, and she's no longer in power, but or position. But hey, it is
No,
what it is.
well, clearly, if Nikki Haley isn't the last, we're rolling back to look for. No. I mean, there were Republicans, so somebody was last. We just didn't know it because we thought we still had Nikki Haley.
But
But yeah, I would
Liz
go
is
Liz
still
Cheney.
there.
Liz, mad respect for her. Hated her policies, but in the end, she had policies. She stuck by them. Yeah.
And principles
Oh god.
that she
Well,
stood by.
we talk about people that are on a list, but this is a list that they make up. This is not actually a list where people say, "Hey, put me on this list." But let's talk about people who do say and has been vocal about wanting to be the president's running mate, and that would be one Elise.
Elise Stefanik.
Okay.
Whenever you hear a pause or a deep breath, I'm always like, "What's about to happen?" So Dave gave me the pause, and Harold gave me the deep breath. All right.
This
I'm
is
gonna let you
somebody
go to Dave.
I think this is somebody who I would think she would have a. Again, I don't know how seriously he is going off of advisors and what advisors he's got that he listens to, and whether people are making. It seems like the people that would make the old school calculations of here, this person shores you up here or there. Um, I don't know. Elise Stefanik seems like she would be the kind of person who Trump would pick, right? That because she's a cheerleader, she's going to go out and do these things for him. She's not anybody that anyone would want to be president. I mean, she's a serious. She's a congressperson, right? She's got no real background, but the on the other hand, she's a pretty woman that will compliment Trump, and I think he likes that.
Unfortunately, she didn't make the short list, but I don't think. But nonetheless, again, with her, she echoes the notion of the replacement theory, which is concerning. Again, and that's what's got a lot of people riled up now. She wanted to. She had I think it was an immigration ad at one point that was televised that she took a lot of heat over, and so sowing these seeds of racism, don't help her cause. However, I guess you could say from a national standpoint. However, from a party standpoint, they've not done anything to kind of push her aside or shun her. Matter of fact, they've rewarded her with all of the attention and even in some of her fundraising. So I think it's interesting, the characters who are being considered, and I know initially when we had the first election cycle back in 2016, it was always going to be the best and the brightest that were being brought forth. And we found out through a number of court cases later, after 2016 or following 2016, that didn't happen. You had a lot of those that were in that inner circle that are sitting in somebody's prison now. And it, just trying to make it make sense. And I can't justify any of these individuals for even dog catcher, much less vice president.
You know what? I'm not even going to respond to that. I'm just going to move on. You know who's going to respond to that? And I think he heard you, and he's staring right in your face there, Harold. He is all up in your face with what you just said. As a matter of fact, let me put him a little closer. Okay.
Okay. Hey, you better back up, partner. You don't know me like that.
um, I, he's funny to me. Not funny to me. Let me take that back. People, I've never seen this before. And Dave, you tell me, I know why it's happening, but I want to hear your eloquent way of explaining it. People who are running against Trump or running campaigns against Trump, but will not overly criticize him. They're like walking that fine line. Is it just because if they have a hope of winning, they don't want to lose those votes? I don't know. It's just the weirdest thing I've ever seen. They are just walking a line of not overly criticizing anything.
Well, and I mean, just this is Tom Cotton, right? Like
Yeah,
I've got the right
yeah,
guy. Okay, let's
yeah.
so we're talking Tom Cotton, and he's there, and he doesn't come out and go, Trump, 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 but he does come in and make moves, and so he's kind of a dark horse in this, and he might actually be a good choice in that respect of he isn't just but I mean no one here is going to satisfy Harold, and Tom Cotton says some stupid stuff, and goes out and has some points of view, but he's still he's still working in the Senate, where you have to play by you have to do something. You've got normal leadership. You got Mitch McConnell as leader, and you're actually passing legislation. And so he's still establishment wise within the rails. And so he would be a good guy. My question is, how does he play with Trump? Right? How does he play? He's probably better than Haley because he didn't challenge Trump.
Mhm.
And if he could be the guy that Trump would, maybe, if he bought into this, you need somebody with credibility, with policy, as an establishment guy, to balance you out and maybe bring along some people who are on the border with, Republicans who would have voted, maybe, say, hey, he might get a Haley voter in, without being Nikki Haley, right? That would be where I would see him possibly being considered as a candidate. And I mean, there are a lot worse choices you could make in that one. So that would be my point of view. But he seems like Haley light in that respect.
This is the least energetic I've ever seen Dave. And I know why. That's why I keep laughing. He's just like,
I don't even know the next guy, right? Like this dude, I don't even know.
Doug Bergman. And I don't know why they're all purposely staring at Harold. I did not do it that way on purpose.
I think he did. I think he did. But my issue with Cotton is simple. When you try to justify slavery as being a necessary evil, I can't ride with you regardless of what policies you want to push, because eventually I'm going to say you're pushing this publicly, but what are you pushing privately? And in all honesty, I of all of these that we've discussed so far, Nikki Haley would probably be the least damaging when it comes from a policy perspective. I would say to persons of color or to the country as a whole. I just think that she would probably have a stronger moral compass than all of these other persons who we've tried to entertain thus far. But like I said, it's hard for me to get past this whole necessary evil comment of Mr. Cotton to even hear what policy he wants to push. Huh?
Some people say things and I'm like, it sounds good in your head when you say it. It sounded good in your head. But off topic of this, you just reminded me of something when you made the slavery comment. I was talking to someone who, Dave, has a degree in economics and he has a degree in political science. Those are their 2 degrees, and they were having a discussion, and we were talking about because it started. We were watching the Magnificent Seven with Denzel Washington, the newest version of the Magnificent Seven, and they were training the people in the town to get ready to fight because the bad guys are coming, right? And so the Chris Pratt character asks, "Who fought in the War of Northern Aggression?" Which when you're on one side of the coin, it's going to be called different than when you're on the other side of the coin, right? We call it the Civil War. They call it the War of Northern Aggression. And he was talking about how some southern states have never recovered from that. And he was explaining to me the GDP of the states for states like Mississippi and Louisiana during slavery, and how after the Civil War, they've still been broke ever since. And it was a lot more in depth than that, but I just found that to be such an interesting conversation. Yeah.
A lot of the research into those things finds that I've seen people do.
Mhm.
They would say that the Civil War and Reconstruction failed to break up the oligarchy of Southern landowners, and that you can trace research has shown that small groups of families kept going, and it's the civil rights movement
Mhm.
that after the civil rights movement, southern states, the GDP, the well, yeah, GDP, we could call it that.
Yeah, I just called it
Uh,
that. I know it
uh,
can be called something
and,
else, but yeah.
and per capita income,
Mhm.
which is the more important thing, have gone up. And one of the things is white people are better off after the civil rights movement in the South, and it's that is a very defensible position, and that's usually the analysis I see. I don't know about this. Well, they've never recovered. It's like, well, Jim Crow and all of that kept them from actually advancing because it was about a group of elites maintaining their control over the economy, and slavery and then the Jim Crow uh, laws and discrimination were a big part of that. That you could maintain your control even though you're not doing anything for middle class white people, except you're keeping them in a social status above all the black people. And that's what Jim Crow does. It keeps everyone in their place, and the point is, it keeps everyone in their place, not just black people. It keeps white people in their place, and it keeps the elite in charge. And so, Martin Luther King didn't just set black people free. Would be there's research to suggest materially that is true. So there you
Okay.
go.
Yep. So there you go.
Somebody react to that.
We know who's the best person to react to that. Harold. You're gonna get some comments, Dave. You are
Okay,
Aaron
I'm gonna let I'm gonna
Reed,
let Dave get the
Massimo, and
comments this
Robinson.
time.
There's
you are
research
by
on
far the most hated person in the comments, and Harold is a buffoon. So if I didn't know you
I
two
can't help.
personally, and I only went on comments, I would be totally misguided into what both of you are.
Hey, I am
Because
what
Dave
I am.
is,
What can I say?
according to the comments, Dave, you are a Democratic pom pom waver. And I know you love it. I love that you're in the raw Democrats. I love it.
Yes.
because I really don't like those guys. But I don't like any. I don't know why we should think we would like politicians. What is it about a politician you think you would like?
But you make a big mistake,
I don't care
Dave.
what party it is. But
But Dave, it's your fault. Your mistake is you won't overly criticize that party. And when
you
you
mean like
do,
tell Biden he should step down
yeah,
because that's what?
well, they don't hear that part. They don't hear Biden should step down because of these reasons. They hear I'm for Donald Trump. People hear things. It's like we discussed with Colin Kaepernick when he told you exactly why he's kneeling, then everybody told him while he was kneeling. You put words out of your mouth, people receive words, and then when they repeat them, it's totally different than what you said. We see it all the time, right?
Not what you say, it's what they hear.
Yeah.
I wish, I long for the days when I had a choice. I long for the days when I would look at both parties with equal disdain, you know? Because you have to understand, I don't like Democrats. I disdain them less than the MAGA folks and the Trump. I don't have anyone to root for anymore, except, well, I have to go with these guys because they're better. They're the least worst, and so I truly truly miss the days when I would choose who to vote for president each year, right? And actually go, who do I like? And
Well, each 4 years, but we know what you meant. All right.
each election, yeah.
Yeah. Our last one on the chart is Doug Bergman. Doug Bergman says Trump can win this election on his own. People of this country are focused on the issues and not who's going to be VP. He said the VP stakes is ridiculous and doesn't matter.
Yeah, that that expresses my opinion. I've hated this topic. I've been like, oh, that's what we're talking about. Oh, jeez.
Hey, sometimes we got to do what the masses asked us. And someone asked, can you break down the Donald Trump vice presidential candidates? And my response to them is like, I'm going to make this list based off of what I'm looking at on Politico and CNN and all these other news websites. But I said, by the time we do the show, I guarantee you half the people won't even be viable on this list. And I was exactly right.
Yeah.
Same day we talked.
I knew the minorities would be gone. I'm waiting for all the women to be gone, and we'll see who's left. And I think it's going to be J.D. Vance.
I wouldn't disagree. I have just no clue what this guy's metrics are going to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
We just, on this count, I don't know. I think if he's going just all, and I've been talking about these guys with Harold talks about who he could stomach as president, or stomach just being in there, and I, other than Nikki, I'm looking at it from the point of view of, does this person help Trump with voters, and then does this person make Trump happy, right? And those, so those are, we're all in total. And Harold's got some other ones, right? I mean, I don't want to put too much in Harold's mouth there, but it seems like there are 3 different standards you could use to assess one of these guys. And I'm not sure which one is the one that's being used or going to be used by Trump.
The reason why, one of the reasons why I say J.D. Vance, and then we'll get into Harold's take on Bergman, is you get on Trump's side by feeding his ego, right? That's one of the ways to get on his side, feed his ego. And when asked about, okay, it came up here because I want to quote it correctly. When asked by CNN's Caitlin Collins if he has any pause to be Trump's running mate, given Trump's treatment of his former vice president, Vance said he's extremely skeptical that Mike Pence's life was ever in danger. On January 6, 2021, the day of the riot at the U.S. Capitol. He's skeptical that his life was ever in danger. He believes that everything is blown out of proportion. And I just don't know how anybody could be comfortable being Donald Trump's vice president if he would leave you that vulnerable and then throw you onto the bus. And have you ever heard, is there a record of a president talking about their vice president in the manner that Donald Trump has talked about Mike Pence?
I don't think there's a manner of any president doing anything that Donald Trump has ever done.
No, I know, but we only know that before social media, we don't know. Before social media and before the internet, we only know about presidents what we were told. I don't know what some of these presidents Ronald Reagan have done in depth, but I've never seen that. Go ahead.
Every president has been moderate and diplomatic in their speech about people to the point of being stilted as a rule. Because I mean, in some ways the comparisons are, until maybe 20 years ago, you would have had this very formalistic way that they talked, and presidents that wouldn't comment. They would, cop this regal attitude. And I don't think Nixon ever said anything bad about Spiro Agnew, even after he had to resign in disgrace, right? That's how we got Gerald Ford in there, right?
Mhm.
And but that was the way of then. But nobody. My thing is, do you actually have to be in danger of your life? I mean, if the president is going to have, I mean, maybe nobody was ever actually going to hang Mike Pence, but they stormed the Capitol screaming, hang Mike Pence," after all the stuff that Trump said. So you're okay with that,
Yeah, just
right,
because it didn't
JD? Like
happen and
the
they didn't
fact
get
that
his hands on it to show us.
right, they weren't actually going to hang him, but they were just so president, get inspires people to chant to hang you, and that's okay because they're just doing that. It's like, no, you should have a little bit of support. I mean, there should be a
No,
limit.
they wouldn't have hanged him, David. When they stormed the Capitol, if they would have broken into that congressional room and Nancy Pelosi and Mike Pence was there, they would have walked up and gave them a giant hug.
No, but what I'm saying is, like, take JD Vance at his word.
Yeah.
I'm okay, but it's still really bad what he did, and I can't believe you would not consider that disqualifying, that you would ever think about pledging yourself, your future, your reputation on somebody who would do that in return, even if there wasn't a material physical danger. If someone would treat you that disrespectfully in return, why would you ever do that and have any self-respect? I don't understand it.
That
But then
part.
politicians are kind of low in self-respect, I think. So
Yep.
I don't think well of politicians in general.
And with that being said, I'll let Harold go ahead and say what he's got to say because I've got more important things to do, like get in the pool because it's hot
Oh my
today, and I
goodness.
know Dave's about to go on the lake.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I had to turn the AC off in here so I could do this. There's an air conditioner right behind me here. And
Wow.
Peter and I are starting to sweat, I think.
Well, what I'll say is I hope these individuals, and again, all of them have either some connection to saying something racist or denying racism in one way, shape, or form. And more concerning to me is, when you look at how this former president treated his former VP, are they really, really going to want to go through that process or be a part of that whole institution or that whole situation? Because what he deems as loyalty is almost like a form of servitude, in my opinion. And so if they don't do exactly what he wants them to do, when they want him to do, and how he wants them to do it, they will be the next name that he slings mud at and potentially endangers, all because they didn't carry out his order, i.e., not certifying the votes or kick it back to the states or rejecting certain things that the state have already certified and things of that nature. So my concerns here is it's more so directed at, are they really, really understanding what they're about to encounter if they are the chosen one? Because once they're chosen and in that position, he has a whole different understanding of what their obligation to him will be versus what they're constitutionally obligated to do. And that's where I think my whole concerns are.
Dave, can you
So,
end on this? And because I want to get it from you and not Harold, it's too easy for me and Harold to answer this question. I don't know how differently we're gonna answer it. Because the words we're here just saying, someone will always say every time we talk about this president's president relations, why do we have to? This is what I get the most, and what you say on here. Why do we keep having to bring up race? Everything's a racial issue. Everyone keeps making this a racial issue. What do you have to say to those people?
Well, I mean, if you guys talk about it, it is a racial issue because you're going to be disenfranchised, targeted, and very marginalized because of your race. And so, like, I don't understand how it's, and so it is because we are seeing increasingly a white nationalist agenda, and that makes it right. Come on. And I don't know that we have to do races, but it's kind of this thing. It's like, look, if an African American is talking about politics and Trump in particular, yeah, race is going to be a big part of it because that's what's going on. There is this pushback. The woke agenda is, uh, you know, the woke things they're talking about translate directly in. You're getting rid of all the diversity programs, right? I mean, this is what you're doing. You are saying that this is like at the head of the agenda. So how is it not about that, right? And in if you're a white person doing it, um, it might not. I'm clearly not the race they're going to go after. But maybe my religion is the one. I'm not a Christian, right? And so for me, I might make it a religious issue or so. And the thing is, they're choosing sides based on these issues. They are attracting voters based off of these issues and taking these stances. And to say that they're not is to ignore what they're doing. And sure, they focused a lot on gay, whatever, transgender things, but that's all part of that same civil rights agenda. And the increasing protection of people who are marginalized, and so it all just works together. So I just don't understand how it couldn't be about this.
Okay,
I
and
don't know
that'll
if that
segue us. Great. That'll segue us into the end, and I'm going to prepare you for the next episode, guys. We will be talking about the push to return religion to public schools. That's going to be what we're talking about next on the conversation, as requested by the poll we did with our audience. So gear up for that. We'll see you in a couple weeks. Everybody have a good one on the lake, and Harold, stay out of the heat.
Deuces.
take care.